To me, architecture seems to be one of the most overlooked forms of visual media in society. It's also one of the most prevalent. Every day we live our lives within and around structures built for specific purposes, and these structures arguably add more undiscussed meaning to our lives than any other form of visual media. And like all other visual media, architecture has evolved with the surrounding shift in society's definition of truth and intelligence. We are finding more complex ways through our architecture to express the ideas of wealth, social status, humility, peace, and social order. However, unlike any other form of visual media, architecture has interminable resonance. People need shelter to survive, and through every form of shelter, a message is presented. Architecture is one of the few and most important mediums through which we can study the past and present societies. My thesis is, while the styles of buildings have altered throughout history within every society, the messages presented through architecture have not grown in complexity over time. While all cultures have changed drastically, only architecture has consistently displayed the concepts of social structure within society. So to prove my thesis, I observed 3 types of structures: religious buildings, high-class homes, and public venues. And for each type of structure, I focused on one building built in the far past and one more modern building. The most interesting example that I found of the message presented by religious buildings was actually at UConn Law School. From 1926 to 1981, the buildings that now constitute UConn Law School actually made up the Hartford Seminary. They were built in the Gothic style, which was typical of the time period because most American architects in the 20th century were actually very impressed by ancient European structures, and they decided to recreate similar buildings. The Gothic buildings have always been known for their appeal to grand emotions, which you can see in the high arches and the detailing in the buildings at UConn Law. But the layout of the buildings and the brightness of the granite used on the structure actually complements the Gothic structures, showing that the area is not only holy, but also peaceful. When you walk out into the main lawn after passing underneath the arch beneath the library, you can see straight ahead that they built a new building in the same style as all the other buildings so that there can be a coherent feel to the whole design. And since the buildings are placed in such close proximity to each other, there's a real sense of community and peace. After the state bought the property, the Harvard Seminary actually built a new structure next to the law school in an entirely different style. And as the role of the seminary changed within society, the style of the architecture did as well. So the new seminary building was built in an entirely modern style, and the exterior was entirely white. Close to the entrance, there's a sign that reads, "May peace prevail on earth." The sign, paired with the white exterior and fluid architecture, creates a heavenly and peaceful environment. So the message of the building has not changed at all, though the style has changed drastically. After going to UConn and focusing on religious architecture, I wanted to focus on high-class homes and see how the architecture has changed in that sense, and I focused on Gillette Castle to prove my thesis. Gillette Castle was a private residence designed by William Gillette in the early 20th century, and it sits atop a hill in East Haddam, Connecticut, overlooking the Connecticut River. It was built with stone and is bordered by an elaborate wall, and it now costs around $11 million today. So immediately when you walk onto the property, you get a sense of the grandness of the structure. So it looms over the entire natural world below it, as if he built it to prove his wealth and power to the world. The structure is intimidating to stand in front of because of its size and the darkness of its exterior, but it creates a sense of amazement in the spectator. I compared Gillette Castle with the homes on Balfour Drive in West Hartford. These structures possess a very similar tone to that of Gillette Castle, even though the physical architecture is entirely different. But the majority of the homes on Balfour were either recently built or remodeled, and a lot of the homes were built in colonial style, so they have very clean exteriors, which is unlike Gillette Castle. The exteriors that do have some stone detail look nothing like the stone exterior of Gillette Castle, and the property surrounding the new houses is far more ordered. But despite the physical differences, the message presented by the houses on Balfour is the exact same message as that presented by Gillette Castle. The houses are placed high up on Avon Mountain overlooking Hartford, so the elevation of the houses seems to symbolize the importance of not only the wealth, but also the social status of the families that reside in the homes. And like Gillette Castle, the houses are intimidating to stand in front of because they seem like they loom over you, or like they possess power. I wanted to compare public structures to support my thesis because of the large role that socialization actually plays in everyday society. And without public structures, our entertainment and social interactions would be entirely different. So I first visited the Bushnell in Hartford. The Bushnell opened in 1930 and was a symbol of hope during the Depression. I noticed instantly that the structure had a gold domed roof, which was a flashy addition that attracts spectators and adds importance to the building. In front of the building, there's a Roman facade that faces the oncoming traffic. The Romans were actually known for their interest in entertainment and leisure activities, so the ancient Roman facade, paired with the golden roof, actually give one the impression that the building is for entertainment and fun. Also, I thought it was interesting that there were ads on the side of the building, as if it were made into a medium through which advertisement could be displayed. After I visited the Bushnell, I went to the movie theater in Blueback Square. The movie theater also had flashy lights that drew attention, and it had large posters hanging from the side of the building. However, the architecture itself was entirely different. The movie theater was built into the urban structure of Blueback Square, so while it is flashy and attracts attention, it's also more modern in structure. The roof is given no importance, unlike the Bushnell, because of the city-like setting of the building, and there is hardly any elegance to the facade. Again, however, the movie theater sends the same message as the Bushnell, that both buildings were made for carefree entertainment. I think I first got the inspiration for this topic from Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death. In Chapter 2, Postman introduces the idea of epistemology, or the theory of knowledge with special regard for its interest in truth. And I realized that nothing is more true than the buildings in which we live and thrive. The truth that is built into every structure is universal. I mean, we all understand the importance of structures and the power associated with well-crafted structures, and because of this, architecture has resonance. And architecture resonates for an infinite amount of time since we as humans will never not need shelter. It's difficult to think of architecture as a visual media since we usually think of media as something instant or as something being advertised. But when I think about the key media concepts, I can concretely understand that architecture is a form of visual media. Key concept number 2 says that media construct images using their own rules. Large houses that are proudly displayed are actually being sold to us. We don't always consciously think of our dream houses, but when we do, they oftentimes look like the dream houses we see on large mountains or in photographs. And this raises the question, whose dream house or dream structure are we actually envisioning? Key concept number 3 says that people experience the same message differently. A person will react to a structure depending on things like his or her wealth, culture, mood, or nature. Not everyone will see the same building as appealing, and no one will experience the exact same feeling of warmth, comfort, discomfort, or even unease when they see a certain type of architecture. But I believe that architecture as a visual media is actually most closely related to Berger's essay on publicity. According to Berger, publicity is about social relations. Publicity manufactures glamour, the happiness of being envied. This is exactly what architecture has always done. Throughout history, bureaucrats have flaunted their physical possessions, including their houses. A nice house represents a nice life, and the unequal distribution of happiness according to architecture has always been prevalent. And architecture has always followed some of advertising's 15 basic appeals, especially the need to achieve, the need for dominance, and the need for prominence.
Well, as long as there's people and communities and the ability to construct things, I think that we'll always continue to build things that satisfy our egos or make us feel comfortable or welcome people to our homes.